All right, well, it's 7 o'clock, so good evening, everybody. To start out our forum this evening, we have our very own Mike, W-A-8-8-8-Z. It's always trouble for me. Mike, you want to go ahead and start out tonight with Marine Corps Marathon?
Thank you, Andrew, and good evening, everybody. I'm Mike Imany, and today we're going to talk a little bit about the upcoming Marine Corps Marathon. The date of that is October 31st. And the marathon is here run in Washington. It starts out near Arlington National Cemetery and ends there. There's actually three races that run simultaneously. The 10K, the traditional marathon of 26K, 26.2 if you're counting. And then there's a ultra 50K marathon that is running simultaneously with the other two. It's an interesting event. It's sometimes called the People's Marathon. Unlike, for example, Boston or New York or LA, anybody can sign up for the marathon, of course, until they reach their limit of number of runners. It's open to everybody. That is to say, nobody has to pre-qualify. You'll find in the marathon there's some interesting characters that run and important people. So, for example, you'll find many of the wounded warriors are competing in the marathon with a specially built marathon-based bicycle. So you'll have the bikes running. You'll have what are called the duels, those wounded warriors and others who physically can't run or pedal. They may be pushed in a very specialized tricycle and by a runner or, frankly, multiple runners. I know where I sat once in the marathon, somebody darted out of the crowd and onto the course, of which I was about ready to call that in the net control. And the person picked up the run from a current runner pushing a duel being two people. And the person who had been running for the last whatever miles faded into the crowd, at which point I said probably didn't need to call that in the net control. And the reason I bring that up is that ham radio operators have a significant role that they play in the Marine Corps Marathon. Effectively, they are the eyes and the ears for a whole bunch of different groups that are in the background. Some you'll never see, but they're ensuring that the marathon is safe as well as medically responsive to any kind of runner situation. And the ham radio operator's role is to call in whatever they see to net control. So we'll talk a little bit about the role of the ham radio operator in the marathon, but let me just kind of finish up this first part. Marathon, this is the 26th running, which is interesting. It'll be the 26th Winterfest event coming up in March. And of course, Winterfest is the Vienna Wireless Society's Hamfest. So we've been doing Winterfest about as long as the marathon has been running the marathon here in Washington, D.C. It is on. It's going to be both virtual and in live. The virtual runs can occur anytime in the month of October, anywhere in the United States. You'll get a very nice certificate if you participate. Not everybody who wants to run in the marathon will be able to run in the marathon. It'll be capped this year at a lower than historical number for the marathon, 14,000 instead of 25,000 people, just because of COVID and things like that. Let's see, a couple more things. I'd like to go around the room here and just show a hand. Have you ever worked the marathon before? If you have, raise your hand. I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Good. I'm going to be calling on you guys. And you compare notes to what you've been running for what you've been doing to participate in the marathon. Some people come from far, far away to be ham radio operators or medics. And so what role do the ham radio operators play in supporting the marathon? Well, the largest single group of hams, of the roughly 150 to 170 who are needed to fulfill all the job descriptions that have been laid out by the security and medical forces, Of the 150 to 170 hams, the largest portion of them are the eyes and ears on the course. We call them the mile markers. And so a ham is going to be staged at every mile marker. There's 26 mile markers in the traditional marathon. And usually, because hopefully we'll have enough ham radio operators signing up, at the half mile markers. And they position themselves at that marker, and they wait for the race contestants to pass by. And the typical radio communication occurs along these lines. The mile marker will probably call this out. You may hear the mile marker before you call it out. So unless you're mile marker 1, you'll probably have a pretty good idea of how this routine works. But as the first runner passes the mile marker, and I'll say it as I did it, neck control, this is mile marker 21. I wait, and neck control, if it hears me, will respond back and say mile marker 21, at which point I'll say first runner past mile marker 21. And at that point, the neck control will probably say, thank you, and press on. There are no Q codes, no QSLs or any of that kind of stuff used. It's a very, very specific and shortened set of calls. You will call in the first runner. Well, actually, you'll call in probably the first bicycle, because the bicycles run faster than the humans run with 2 feet. The duels may come next because they usually are released earlier than the mass of runners. And so you'll see the bicyclists, and they go fast. The duels, they may be in the front of the pack, or they may not be the most speedy runners. And remember, they're carrying not only their own weight, but the weight of the person they're pushing. So they could be intermixed with the runners as the runners go. It's not clear yet this year if they're going to have a mass release of the runners, or if they're going to stage runners in socially distanced groups. There's been dialogue of both, and at our planning meetings coming up, we'll probably find out more about that. But in any event, once the runners come, they just thread their way through, and you usually call the first runner. And then, of course, the more important thing you're doing is if there's a runner in distress, in your view, in the mile marker you're at, you go back to neck control and say, neck control, this is mile marker 21. Neck control come back and say, go ahead, 21. And you'll say, runner in duress, in my eyesight. Neck control at that point will typically come back and say, please proceed to a special frequency and meet up with either the DC or the Arlington or whoever medical group that is going to respond. And so you change your radio to that special simplex frequency, and you call the Arlington or DC medics and say, medic, this is mile marker 21. And the medic will come back. Usually a ham radio operator who is situated with the medics will come back and say, tell us more. What do you know? And, is the individual sitting, or is he prone, et cetera, trying to give eyes on the field. Of course, you don't want to enter the field of runners. You'll get run over. You usually sit off to the side. And runners who are in duress usually are smart enough to get out of the way, or they'll get trampled. Of course, if there's a significant scene, mass event or something like that, you'll be calling that in. So mile markers are the key role that the ham radio operators play. Most first-time operators to the marathon, ham radio operators to the marathon, will be posted at a mile marker. The good news is you're very busy. The bad news is if you're at mile marker number 21, you're not very busy until about 2 hours into the race, because 21 miles into the race, you're only 5 miles left before you finish. And so you'll be sitting there for a while waiting for the first runner to come, and you'll hear it in the net. And of course, what's going on is everybody is operating in duplex mode off of a series of repeaters in the downtown Washington, D.C., or in the area of the Arlington Pentagon, which is part of the race course. you'll have certain frequencies you're assigned based on your position and mile marker, and you'll be given this information as part of the frequency plan. Talking about the frequency plan, I should point out that if you wish to volunteer, there'll be training, significant training that occurs, and this year it'll be on the 16th of October, Saturday the 16th. So the race is the 31st, and the training, in-person training, will be the 16th. And usually the training is also broadcasted live, virtual, and also recorded for future listening. So I've already talked about the mile markers. That's where generally first-time ham radio participants participate. I mentioned that we need about 150 to 170 ham radio operators. Do the math. If they're at every mile marker and every half mile marker, there's 50 or 60 ham radio operators right there needed in the mile markers. But we also have ham radio operators that are assigned to the water points and the aid stations, and their role is much similar. Although in the aid stations, they have some additional duties that they support the medical staff in inputting data in a specialized data system. Not only do we have ham radio operators that are assigned to the aid stations, but we'll also have ham radio operators assigned to the key personnel. So there'll be a ham who is strapped to the hip of the top dock. And his job is to listen to all the nets and all the activities going on across the marathon. And remember, generally speaking, it's a wave effect, right? So mile marker 1 is going to call things in. Mile marker 1.5 is going to call some of the same things in. 2, 2.5, 3, 3.5, 4. So this thing is kind of a wave event. But depending upon the temperature, people can get stressed, and when they get stressed, they can get cramps or worse. They have to drop out of the race. I've had situations where a runner comes up to me and says, I need to call my husband. You have a phone. What am I going to do? So I give him my phone, and hopefully I'll get it back. And in fact, I spent probably 30 minutes after the fact between the husband and the wife trying to get them connected, because the husband had no clue where mile marker 21 was and was an out-of-towner. And oh, by the way, most of the roads are closed, so the only way you get around the course is walking. So what else? I talked aid stations, water points, special persons, VIPs like the top dock and the like. There'll be a ham radio operator that's situated in the emergency communications center and is also watching all the play of what's going on, and typically is not engaged unless something like a national security event begins to unfold. And that's, of course, a very important activity. Is should there be a terrorist event or other event outside of the purview of the runners and the marathon, then this becomes a special national security event, and all kinds of special things happen in the emergency communications world. And generally at that point, net control says to all the ham radio operators, at this point, stand down, take direction from the emergency operations center. And generally they have all the comms that they need, and they're going to go into a world that we will just watch. So my last part of this, what do we do to sign up for the event? Well, let me show you, because there's a special process you have to go through. I'm going to assume that most people know how to get to the Vienna Wireless website. And when they do, this is the homepage, of course. If I come over here to events, and I come down here to the marathon, and I click on the marathon, I can see the marathon is October 31st. They're going to be looking for a bunch of ham radio operators. They ask for 170. They can operate at a low end of 130, but that's frankly, I've done it at 130, and it's not fun. There's 2 steps to signing up for the marathon if you want to sign up. And of course, we would encourage you to sign up. This is a really low stress activity. There's a great training session that runs on the 16th. and it'll give you all the answers. What usually happens is by earlier than the 16th of October, everybody will be given their duty assignments, either a mile marker or whatever, and you'll break up as part of the event, a part of the training event. You'll be broken up into groups, and off to the side, all the mile marker guys will talk about how they're going to operate and how they get their parking to where they need to be and the like. And the ardent people will go off into a corner and do their special ardent stuff that they do with regards to setting up a digital network for passing the medical information that's passed. So if you read through this a little bit, you'll see register for the 46th Marine Corps Marathon here. You must register with the marathon, and frankly, you should do it first, but it doesn't really make a difference. You'll see this screen right here, and all you really need to do is click this button right here that says, I want to volunteer, and I want to volunteer as a ham operator. And don't worry about this 4 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. I'll talk about that later. But yeah, it's a long day. You click this, okay, and then you come on down here and you give your email address, you fill in the details, and you sign up to be a volunteer. Very simple. That puts you into the system, the larger Marine Corps Marathon system. More importantly, for those of you that care, this is going to get you a T-shirt that you'll get as part of participating in the Marine Corps Marathon. What we'll offer you is a T-shirt and a great lunch, box lunch. Well, maybe not so great box lunch. Well, that's the first thing you need to do, is you need to go come back over here to events, to the Marine Corps Marathon. And so now that you've signed up, and I think you get a notice saying that you've signed up. Thank you for signing up. At least I remember that. Here's the second. This is very important. You need to sign up with the MCM ham folks, mcmham.org. And you do that by pressing on this button right here, this here, the second here. Here is here, and there is here. So you sign up for the second time, and this one's a little bit more involved. What you'll need to do is you'll need to, if you're interested in volunteering with us, please click here. That's the first thing you have to do. And when you get there, it's going to basically say, please log in for directions. And when you log in, you have to hit this key right here. Okay? So you go to the mcmham.org site. You got to look at the top and say, okay, what do I want to do? I want to volunteer. The next thing you're going to do is log in. If you don't have a password, you'll create one. It's easy to create. I've already done this, so I won't do it again. I probably get 2 assignments. And log in right over here. And you're now logged in. And you can, you've already identified a little bit about yourself, but you can tell people what you have for radio equipment. And this is important because what you want to do is you want to tell people add equipment. You want to add what kind of radio you have. All you need is a 2-meter HT. It'd be nice to be a dual band 2-meter 440, but you just put what you have in the list. So if you're going to have a 440, in my case, I have a 144 megahertz or 2-meter FM handheld. Okay, and I have, it's also a dual band, so I have a 440 FM handheld. That's all I need to do anything I'm doing in the marathon. Now, there are some people that have some really cool stuff. They've got some D-Star capability. They got some Ardent capability. You can add whatever you have by just clicking what you have and clicking it here, and it'll log you in with the equipment you have. So manage your equipment. Now, I guess I should say you need to volunteer. So the next one over says, okay, put your name in, decide what it is you want to do. Here's your choices. You can be just thrown out as, give me any job that's there. You can put yourself in as a division shadow. I doubt you'll get that. Those usually go to people that are been doing this for 10 or 15 years. You can be in the med temps, so you could be in net control. You can be part of either race A, B, or C, but I think the key is for most of you, you put the word any in and let them assign you where you need. If you need put your personal information in, you do it here. And then more importantly, the files are very important, because these files will tell you what is out there for you to download before you start with the marathon. Now, they've not populated much of 21. You can see there's only 2 files published since 19. But many of these will be very familiar and will be updated in the next week or so and published as with a 21 date. For example, you can, if you want to, you could really download the operating guide. And if you download this operating guide, it doesn't change much from year to year, but I scanned through it. There'll be some changes. You could print it off now if you want and start studying it, but it'll give you an idea of what is in the marathon and what you need to do. Now, that's the end of my formal presentation. I want to open it up to questions and comments from the group, and I can offer some more thoughts about, okay, I agree with HT is all you need, but what else do you need really besides the HT? And if nobody asks that question, I'll answer it a little bit. So over to questions. Blurt them out.
So I have a comment, if I might.
Sure.
So I've been doing the Marine Corps Marathon for a bunch of years now. I don't remember the exact number. And I guess because I said I was interested, I never got a mile marker spot. I went right into working on MedNet and supporting Aid Station 7. And I've never had a different assignment than Aid Station 7. So the cool part about that is it's usually the same team of medics every year. So I've made some friends over the years that we meet each other on Marine Corps Marathon at dark 30 on a Sunday morning, and we say farewell at 5 o'clock later on that day, and we see each other again a year later. It's kind of a fun event. When I first got into it, I was hesitant because of my skill set at the time, and I got to tell you, it's if you can wake up by yourself every morning, you can work the Marine Corps Marathon. It's pretty darn simple, and with the user's guide and the training, it even gets easier. And like Mike, I'm also reviewing that document for this year's publication, and there are some changes, but the basic stuff is unchanged. So if you haven't done it before, you should volunteer for the Marine Corps Marathon. It's really a good event. It's actually the region's largest planned mass casualty event from a medic and fire point of view. Lots of good help is provided on that day from lots of people around the country. Hope to see you there.
Thanks.
Other
questions?
Pete Hadley.
Yeah, Pete.
I took my bicycle, hooked it on the back of the car, and drove out to the parking lot. And then I used the bike to get around to the different sites that I needed to be. And also it would come in very handy when it's time to take a trip to the porta potty. So I would say that if you like to ride your bike and you can take it out there, that would certainly be an asset to getting around, because some of the sites are rather remote, and then you might need a break in the middle of the show also.
Particularly for the 50 marathon, the 50K, we don't man that to the same level we do the traditional marathon. The ultra marathon runners don't need much assistance, and they very seldom have any medical issues. And so there's less hams out there, meaning that you have further to go out Rock Creek Park, particularly, that some other mode of operation of transportation is helpful. The road shut down, and the road shut down starting around 5:30, which is why they asked for an early show, because you want to get into position and before the road shut down. In the last 2 years, they've done 3 years. Now that we haven't done it for a year, they've done a really good job of mile marker and aid station to parking location. And so they're doing a better job of giving people instructions on likely spots to park. Okay, next question. Thanks, Pete.
Hey, this is Dean. I have a question, Mike. So how does the actual wireless communication work? You've got your HT. Are you talking through repeaters, or is it simplex? And it's hard to imagine because a lot of the HTs are just a couple of watts. And
okay, so it's a
lot of distance.
Well, it's twofold. First of all, the net control is operating off of a series of repeaters, and the repeaters are particularly located on the course to where they need to be able to provide full comms to the course. And in fact, some people will be put in a RaceNet A or RaceNet B or RaceNet C based on the repeaters. There'll be in fact, if I were to go back up to, I won't do it, but there's a frequency plan that is not yet published for this year. There'll be a chirp version of that, so you can download that to your HT. It includes both all the repeaters being used, and I think, it's alpha through Mike. So how many letters is that? 13, maybe? So there's 13 repeaters that are available to be used. Several of them are spares. And then there's another 15 or 20 simplex frequencies that are used for the individual medic to aid station or medic to mile marker. And those are usually within about a mile of another. A couple of things that I'll bring out at this point. It really is worth your time to invest in a Tiger Tail for your HT. And if you're going to invest in the Tiger Tail, go ahead and invest in some kind of a microphone speaker separate from the HT, something that you can put up to your ear without having to hold the HT. I know people that take Slim Jims and find a tree and put it up the tree. The trees are pretty far and in between, so I wouldn't depend upon it. I've seen some people string them on a light pole and not get caught, but I would think at some point somebody would get upset about that. You can bring a chair. You're going to be sitting for a while. You can bring a book. You can bring some food other than their food if you want. But everything you bring, as Pete said, you got to carry in your own way. Next question.
Yeah, I'll make a comment.
Yeah, go ahead, Bill.
2 or 3 quick things. First of all, the microphone is a great idea. A headset's an even better idea for your HT. Secondly, the parking thing is getting better, but I found it was always helpful for me to scope out where I was going to be ahead of time so that I knew where I was going to park. And third thing is some of the road closures start at 3 a.m., not 5 a.m. So be aware.
Well, they're not supposed to. The DC cops, DC police kind of jumped the gun in 19 with some road closures that really messed up a whole lot of people. Hopefully that will be resolved this year. But we know that for a fact, we want everybody to be in their position before 5:30.
Also, just so you know, the police and the other security departments, the park police and other security agencies that are brought in for this event are all very well briefed on amateur radio and our role and how many there are and where they might find us. And the cops who are attentive and pay attention are easy to deal with. And there's actually a write-up in the instruction book about how to deal with an encounter with an officer if either you or the officer are haven't had enough cup of coffees at 3 o'clock in the morning yet. From personal experience, I didn't know how to talk to a cop the first year, and I needed to. And it took a little while to get through the conversation. And with a little experience and confidence over the years, when you come up to that roadblock and you explain you need to get through, just tell the truth and show them your credentials, and there should be no issues. But the cops are on our side, for sure.
And everybody will have a significantly color-coded vest, and you'll have some kind of a credential to be able to help. And then, of course, net control stands ready to help anybody that has an issue. We can go back to the emergency communication center and say, we have a ham stranded at X's location, and they'll go do their magic on the EOC side. So that's exactly correct. Okay, we're wrapping it up here. I need to get off stage. Last question, if there is one.
Yeah, Mike, one quick question on if you can't make the training on the 16th, is there an alternative?
Yeah, definitely. There, without question. First of all, the alternative would be it'll be tape recorded and you can listen to it there. Second of all, talk to some of the folks that have went to the training. Just put something out on the general reflector that says, "Hey, I missed the training. What did I miss?" And a number of us will have gone to the training.
It's also recorded for playback, correct?
Yes, has been in the past anyway.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, that's it. Hopefully you'll consider signing up. Remember, you have to sign up in 2 locations. Don't have to do it in this order, but I find it's logical. Go to the website, go to events, go to the Marine Corps Marathon, click on the first here, and that here is the Marine Corps Marathon volunteer page. And then you'll repeat some of that information going to the MCM ham. And there's a number of us that if you get stumped on the sign-up process, just drop us an email. Just drop an email to the General Register saying, I'm having problems sign up, because we don't have a individual designated as the event coordinator.